All right, let's close out the episode with a couple of bubble players. I'm going to ask you both, maybe give me three, because I think we can. I think we can quickly whip up three. Lisa, who you've got on the bubble with a little bit more to prove before this roster gets announced?
On my bubble is Tierna Davidson, defender out of Chicago Red Stars. I think her inconsistency on the pitch, playing with the Red Stars and their back line. She's coming back from that ACL injury, and she's one that I think is going to have those conversations with Vlatko Matanovsky about what she needs to do, and if she's called up and on this roster, what her role is going to be, because I think it's going to look a lot different than what she wanted it to be and what it would have been pre-ACL tear. She's one that is a very big bubble player for me, but close to actually being on the roster, depending upon some of the other shifts that happen on this roster. Do you want all of my bubbles right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Another one, Kelly O'Hara, just based on the injury level. She's one that I think Vlatko Matanovsky would like to bring based on the fact that she's been in these positions before, her experience, what she can bring. But if she's not that healthy and she can't get minutes and she has this nagging injury that she can't shake, I don't think it's worth it for him to put her on a plane. I'd rather him bring Alyssa Thompson and have a little bit more firepower in the front line. So Kelly O'Hara, for me, a bubble player. And then Korniak and Kruger are my other bubbles that are like big bubbles. Like I'm not really sure Taylor Korniak is going to make it on this World Cup roster. She's coming back from injury. She's still getting minutes picked up. And I don't know who she would knock off of this roster, even though her name has been called in over the last year or so with this roster. And she's kind of found her groove since the CONCACAF W Championship with them. And then Casey Kruger, another defender that got called up most recently in April, and we saw her get good minutes. She is a very good lockdown 1v1 defender. She's been to a World Cup before, so she has that edge, but I just don't think you bring her over someone like an Emily Fox, even like an Emily Sonnet, who brings a bit more versatility, being able to play center back and outside back, and maybe even the six, but I doubt it.
How about you, Jordan? You got similar players or anyone different?
I have very similar players. I think the biggest bubble spot for me with the roster that we've decided upon, there's a number of players who can shift into that center back position, but not a lot of players who can shift into the outside back position. Mm-hmm. Even if you think maybe Crystal Dunn needs to go into the midfield at times, who's filling those outside back spots? So I think that's the biggest. O'Hara or Kruger. Those are the two that I'm like, I could see Vlatko going with one of those two. My biggest bubble player, and it was really hard for me not put this player on the roster, Jaden Shaw.
Right on.
I want Jaden Shaw on this team. I don't think it's going to happen, but I am obsessed with how she plays. She can play as a false nine. She can play as a attacking midfielder. She can even play on the wing. So I just think she is a little bit free. And, I think as players develop, you develop more thoughts and how to play, but also it restricts you from just feeling the game. And I think she feels the game really naturally and pops up in the right spots. I would love to see her in this mix with some of these players and to see what she could do. If she goes to the World Cup, I will be so happy. But it's going to be hard for her to get in there. So it's not a player that I think has been on the bubble at all, but just due to form and how fun she has been to watch, I want her on that plane, Sandra.
I respect it. I really do. Listen, I think we were all curious a little bit when it came to the Youth World Cup. Like, are we going to see Jaden Shaw? And she's actually getting those minutes for club right now, and it's because Casey Stoney said she's essential.
Yeah,
to the wave. That's the caliber of player that she is, and so I'm with you 100%. It's almost kind of like maybe we could have seen her in some camps to really kind of give her a real kind of bubble shot at this. I think maybe she's a long shot bubble player. I hear all the arguments I hear all the similar arguments for Hatch and for Kruger, even Davidson. I think at this point, I mean, I would actually consider Sonnet a bubble player at this point. I think just because of how we've seen her play for club, I'm very curious about what that's going to mean for this roster. Does, the switch in position for the Reign mean that the national team coaching staff wanted to see some things in the middle third from Sonnet because they see her playing a different role for the national team program? I don't know. We'll see. Again, another one of these players that was on the 2019 World Cup roster. Casey Kruger, I got her as a lock, but I respect the pick for the bubble. I think those are all very valid points and arguments. I mean, this is a player that has been with the national team program for quite some time, despite making her return back from pregnancy and the birth of her son. But, this was one of those players that was with the team in Tokyo. So has international experience with this team. And knows the expectations of the coaching staff, and those things are maybe some things that the coaching staff can look at as well. So, I mean, I think you have even a spectrum of the bubble here. I think you've got players who are on the bubble that actually really do have a shot to knock some other players off and get held into and cemented into that roster. But I think you've got some other bubble players who I think we can look at and say, unfortunately, time is just run out on the clock.
And some that are our hope to go. I'm with you on Jaden Shaw. That would be, she's not going, I don't think, but I would love to see that. I think you're exactly right. She's just done so well. If it was maybe a couple months ago and she could get a camp under her belt, I would love to see it. I
just want it. I want it. So I'm choosing it. I
like it.
I love it.
I like it. Sometimes we have the power here, but usually we don't. Not at all. I'm interested. A lot of people in our chat talking about this, and sometimes I just like to entertain the fans because it's fun to see reactions. No Sam Coffey on either of your bubble. Is there a reason that she's not on there, or just hasn't really given you enough, and that spot's kind of already filled?
I think for me, just the tip of the coach's hat. I mean, I think if Coffey had a place on this roster, we would have seen more in the decisions from the coaching staff, and we just have not. That's not to say that I don't think she hasn't warranted conversation around her inclusion on this roster. She absolutely has, and it stems back to her play in 2022 with the Thorns, and that includes this chunk of months in the build-up to the World Cup. Now, I think she's probably the most consistent six that you can see playing in women's American domestic soccer. And that's quite a compliment to give such a young player at this point in her career. So I'm eager to see Sam Coffey with this national team program out of this World Cup. Had we seen this player get selected and chosen for starting lineups, getting more play under her belt with other preferred midfielders and even other preferred attackers in the mix, I think she would have been listed on this bubble with a shot to make it. But unfortunately, the coaching staff hasn't shown me enough that they are actually in serious consideration to put this player on the roster.
I would have liked to see Coffey against some of the bigger teams in the world when the U.S. had played teams that are going to challenge her a little bit for her, how much ground she can cover. I think with the ball and her distribution, and I think just sometimes her positioning is a step behind when it comes to defensive covering that type of ground. And in a single pivot, it's a lot. And so I think she's still going to develop. And I think that 6 spot, when you talk the next cycle, there is not a lot of players coming through that 6 spot. So if I was a player right now in the youth level, I'd be like, okay, there's an opportunity here, because even in the pro ranks, we're not seeing a lot of 6s. No. So just a thought there. I think Coffey has a really great shot. I just think development will be great. And I'm sure we'll see her a part of it coming this next cycle.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love it. This was so much fun.